Islamic Sheikh, I've worked in a very dangerous environment where you need to watch murderers, killers, drug dealers, rapists, and all other kinds of criminals 24/7. I could hardly practice my religion to the fullest, nor could I do at least my 5 times prayer. I was uncomfortable, depressed, emotional, and empty-hearted. Therefore, I decided to resign from my position. Now, alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah, I feel much more comfortable, proud, and fulfilled than ever. However, I'm going back to the same position but a different company. How could I overcome this fear to not fall back into the ditch? Any advice on how to approach my boss about this? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you, dear Shaykh. Ameen. I'm sorry to hear about these experiences that you're having. The first thing that I would suggest is to make an appointment and come and see me. These are issues that require very personal responses and very personal dealings. In general, how we deal with trauma is very important. There are people who are in different positions who see this trauma every single day. So there are doctors, nurses, even myself as clergy, I deal sometimes with, unfortunately, abuse cases, rape cases, sometimes with children, and they can have an effect on the individual, they can have an effect on the person. Emergency people who work in emergency services, police officers, right? So all of these people who deal with constant trauma, how do they process that trauma and how do they deal with it? I think it's very important to have a therapist, right? Somebody who you can actually talk to and learn how to manage some of those issues and some of those problems that we face and how to process some of that trauma that we're dealing with. I think another good it's important to also have a good attitude going into these situations. Just because I'm watching these people, right? So they might be rapists or murderers or whatever the case might be. It's very important for me to kind of divorce myself from those situations and realize that, number one, that these people don't represent all of society, right? So when we talk about these people who do these things or perform these actions, they're not representative of the larger society. Alhamdulillah, most people, I truly believe, are good. I truly believe that most people are good. I don't believe that most people are bad. And this minority of people that are doing those things, remember that they are a minority and you are in a position to supervise them and to watch over them. So whether you're in a halfway house or whether you're a CEO, what is it? What is a CO? I forgot what does it stand for? You remember? No. The one who oversees the correctional officer. Yes, right, a corrections officer. So whether you're a corrections officer or whatever else the case might be, just remember that these individuals, again, they're not representative of society. They're representative of a very small portion of them. And alhamdulillah, we have systems in place to actually separate them from the rest of society so that they're not able to spread their harm. Remember that you are part of a greater machine or a greater mechanism that ideally is supposed to be good. Are there people who are jailed and put in those positions unjustly? Yeah, absolutely. But alhamdulillah, I think that percentage is relatively low if we compare it to a lot of the oppression that's going around in the world today. So, like I said, I would recommend seeing a therapist. Please, you're more than welcome to come and make an appointment with me. Anybody who would like to make an appointment with myself or for the sisters, they can either make an appointment with myself or with Sister Shaheen or with Sheikh Shakir. You guys can just go to the website, or you can do that through our app, the Al-Hijrah app. So please, if you want to make an appointment with us, you're more than welcome to do so. But I would say that learning some of these skills is very important when we're in these high trauma positions. And learning how to deal with that trauma and how to process it, and making sure we have a good support network. That's something that's very important. I myself, for example, I have a therapist that I speak to. I have a support group, so I have other imams who I speak to about issues that I feel are very problematic or that might affect me. I also try to keep an attitude of divorcing myself from the situations of the people who walk in. So remember, like, someone might say, well, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. Why do I need to see a therapist? I don't see a therapist because I feel there's anything wrong with me, but to help me navigate some of the trauma that I deal with and some of the trauma that I see. And I think that's very important. It allows us to be more honest with ourselves, especially if we have a good therapist, right? So can I have a bad therapist? Yes. I mean, I remember one time someone said to me, he's like, most therapists require therapy. I don't disagree with that. And sometimes you have to go through 3, 4, 5 different therapists before you actually find a good one. Don't feel or don't say like, oh, I went to the therapist and it didn't work for me. Okay, yeah, it didn't work with that therapist, and I can definitely agree with. But it doesn't mean that all therapists are bad. I know there are a lot of people who have inhibitions about medication, and I can definitely feel for that, and I definitely do understand that. But therapy is more strategy. It's more mechanisms that they give you. It's more techniques that they give you than immediately jumping to medication. And if you are from those people who are reserved about taking medication, again, completely understandable. And you can be honest with the therapist. Be like, no, I don't want to take medication. I'm not. That's not something I'm interested in. It's not something I'm interested in pursuing. And I need you to help me with strategies that don't use or don't utilize medication, and they're obligated to do that, right? A doctor can't force you to take medicine. A therapist can't force you. They can recommend whatever they want. You know, I have family members. You know, the doctor will tell them like, hey, you need to take, and sometimes even myself, I'm not going to lie, right? So the doctor will tell me to take certain medications. I'll be like, no, I don't want to take that, right? And what can the doctor do, right? The doctor can't do anything about it. And it's the same thing with a therapist. They are there as advisors, and we should take that advice as objectively as we can. And sometimes they'll give good advice, sometimes they'll give bad advice, because they're human beings, right? And we're all human beings. We're just trying to do the best that we can, and we should try to get the most help and the best support that we can. Sometimes we think, oh, that's family. Oh, this is something that I don't want to get out. I don't want it to be public. Listen, if you're going to a lawyer, if you're going to a psychiatrist, a therapist, an imam, right, somebody who's working in a position, they are obligated to keep whatever is happening in that office a secret. This is an obligation, right? This is a legal obligation, and it's a community obligation, right? There are two levels to that, because if someone comes to see me, for example, and I start giving a khutbah about what someone just spoke to me about, how many people in the community will trust and come and see me again? Right? No one. These positions are very high trust positions. This is why you have a lot of laws that actually protect people who come and speak to those people. So if I go and speak to a doctor is not allowed to share my information with anyone else. If I go speak to a lawyer, that lawyer is not allowed to share. Even our taxes, right? I can't. The tax guy can't go around telling people how much your salary is or my salary is, right? There are legal protections to that. And the same thing with an imam. If you're coming to an imam, you're coming to any spiritual counselor, they're obligated. They're both legally and in a community sense, to keep that information private, because there is a trust that is there that has to be maintained. And Allah knows best. So, like I said, these are some just general things that I'm sharing. But take advantage of whatever strategies you can. Your brother or sister, your mother, sometimes your wife or your children. These are not always the best therapy mechanisms. They can help, right? And they can support. There's no doubt about that. But they themselves are not therapists. And that's something that's very important to keep in mind. Our job as individuals is always to be gateways. That's our job. That we try to get people the help that they need. That help doesn't always need to come from me. If someone comes to me and says, hey, I have a problem with my car, if I work on the car, I'm probably going to create more problems. So what should I do? I should send that person to a mechanic that I trust. And it's the same thing here. If I am not a therapist, I cannot give someone therapy. That's being very oppressive of me, because I'm doing something that I'm not qualified to do. And I'm actually accountable for that in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like I cannot give prescriptions. I cannot give psychiatric advice. I cannot give legal advice, right? These are things that I am not allowed to give because I don't have the skills to give those things. But what I am obligated to do is to direct them to someone who does have that skill set. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq.